Well, good morning, everyone. This is Daryl Wallery, and there you see my mother, Lois Wallery, and we are going to make raviolis today. So, take it away.
Okay, first I put 6 eggs and the whites in this mixing bowl, and I put a ½ teaspoon of salt, and then I also took one of the egg shells, about a half of a shell, and I put 6 half shells of water in here. So it's the water, the eggs, and the salt. And then I'm going to start mixing it, and then I'll start adding the flour a little at a time. 6 cups of flour. Okay,
Why do you add it a little at a time?
because if you put it too much, it goes all over. I've got this contraption which doesn't work too well, it seems. When I put it on top of the bowl and I add the flour, it has popped out and flew all over the place.
All right, sounds good.
Anyway, we'll get started with this.
Let's do it. Just scrambling the eggs up.
What?
So that's just mixing the eggs up, obviously.
Okay, now I'm going to put this doodad on again and see if it'll work. This, I don't know what they call it, a shield of sorts. Whoops. Gotta get that in. Like making a commercial for KitchenAid.
Yeah.
And I pre-measure the flour because in case I get a phone call or whatever, then I'm not putting in too much flour. You think you could hear over that machine?
Yeah, I think so, as long as you speak
Well,
up.
I just wanted to tell that when my mother made noodles, she would make a mound of flour, make an indentation, and crack the eggs and put the water in that little well, and then she would just keep folding the flour in and mixing it, and she'd end up with dough. And when I tried it, it was like a eruption. It would be running all over the board. So.
All right, so this is just the more modern way of doing it. That's
Right.
all. You get to the same end point. So first it's basically just going to mix everything together, but then at some point it's going to actually start kneading the dough.
Well, you can hear the motor is straining now, so I've probably got enough flour in there. And it's going to have to just mix it until it looks smooth enough, and then we'll take it out and put it on the board and knead it.
Okay. Okay, now you see the dough is actually starting to form.
Right, it's staying around the dough hook, and then I'll slow it down a little bit so we could take a better look at it. And it's pretty, if it's coming away from the sides, then it's pretty much ready to go.
So in a sense, it's almost like kneading it right in the bowl.
Correct. So
That's the first part of the kneading.
Right.
Okay.
Are we rolling?
We're filming.
Okay. So this is the rest of the 6 cups of flour, and I'm putting a generous portion on the board so that when I take the dough out of this mixing bowl, it will not stick to the board. I actually don't think
And you can see we have another member of the family here to help with the process. Dave Wallery.
That spoon, I think, works better. this is packed.
Like a bit, this is a regular spoon like this?
Yeah, that's gonna work. This thing is bending. Thanks. Just want to get most of the dough out of here. You know, you can't leave 2 or 3 raviolis in the pot, in the bowl.
Some chapstick.
That's right. I did take, this time, with the same amount of eggs and flour, I really was short with the ricotta, so this time I did 5 cups, actually the rest of the 5 pounds of cheese, so we should have enough to finish. Okay. And again, this time we're kneading, this is the kneading by hand. Use a lot of flour at first so it doesn't stick to your hands, otherwise you get it all coating of dough. I have 2 stations for making these, one a low so I can knead, and higher to make the ravioli, so it's a little easier on your back. You just turn it about 1/4 of a turn and then press it down. And when it's not finished, the dough that you press in just kind of
lays on top.
Blends in.
When it's not finished.
When it's not finished. When it's finished, then you could tell it looks like it won't, go into the ball. The harder you want the noodles, the more dough you put. The more flour. And then after we get this kneaded, we're going to let it rest before we make the raviolis. And, let's see that. So, I don't know how many cups I would say. I think we put only about 3-4 cups in the blender. And
Cups of what?
Flour. When we were mixing it in the mixer. And then this is the remainder of the flour that you're working into the dough. Now you can tell it's almost there because when you fold it over, it doesn't blend right in. So you're getting, that's the rest of the dough. Alright, I'm going to cut this in half and I'll knead it again. And you can knead that one. You could almost hear the bubbles. If there's air bubbles in it, you could hear it almost popping. Okay. I'm going to cut it once more. And it's easy.
Back on.
What I was going to mention that my mother used to say when the dough is right or ready, it would be very smooth, and then it looks like a baby's bottom. so that's one finished. Here, you want to cut it? All right, and then you could do half. See, then it's really moist, and you could just kind of work the flour in again. I don't know if this would be good for golf, but it seems like it should. Just the exercise with your wrists and hands.
Yeah.
How many times a week would Grandma make pasta like this, you think?
Oh, she would make pasta anytime she wanted, anytime. She might make it, once or twice a week. She would come home, or I came home from work, and I remember her saying, why don't we do Sonia cheese? It was 6 o'clock at night, and I was like, I don't think I'm up to making pasta at 6 o'clock at night, but she would make it anytime. I have to also tell, when she had a quad, or was to have a quad, only ended up with a 3 bypass, and I said to the doctors, will she be well enough to make pasta? And he said, oh no, she'll never make pasta again. Well, I want you to know that she made pasta. Yeah, she made pasta till she left her own house at 87. So we're almost there.
Foolish doctors.
Yeah. All right, now you just keep it, yeah. And then if it's getting too dry, then get a little of this off, because you don't want it to be too hard to roll if it's too stiff. All right. And like I said, as soon as it's not sticking to your hands and it's very smooth, then it's good. That looks good. All right. We can just turn these over. All right, set that in there. And we're going to let it rest a few minutes, and then we'll start with making the ravioli. All right, are we ready?
I'm ready. Okay, welcome. This is December 14th, 2011, and I'm Darryl Wallery, and there's my mother, Lois Wallery, and we're going to explain and show you how to make the Christmas raviolis. So first we're going to start with how to put together the filling, the ricotta.
Okay, I took 4 cups of ricotta, and then to that I added salt and pepper to taste. Now I don't have the amounts of that, but you could taste it and see. Then it's 4 cups of ricotta and 2 eggs, the whole eggs. Whip them before you put it in, and then you mix the eggs, the ricotta, salt and pepper, and now we have to add 1/3 of a cup of chopped parsley, and then this will be ready for the filling.
About how many raviolis, or how are you figuring that you needed that much filling?
From past experience. I used to do 12 eggs, and then I would just do the whole bucket, 5 pounds, but then I'd have leftover. So then what I did is I started trying to, I had to do it in shifts, because with that KitchenAid, I can't do 12 eggs at one time. Mm-hmm. So I do 6 eggs, and so then I had to figure out how much ricotta for 6 eggs, because then I do it usually in 2 days. Mm-hmm. But with my ace helper here, I'm hoping to get all of it done today.
So it's going to make about how many raviolis?
If we make 12 eggs, we make about 200 raviolis.
Okay. All right,
okay?
Great.
So then I just have to add the parsley in here, and then I took this container from the KitchenAid, and I put 6 eggs in there, the whole eggs, and then I used one of the shells, a half shell, and I put 6 half shells of water. Then I beat that, and I just used this dough hook, thank you, dough hook, to beat the eggs, because I had plenty of time. And then I added the flour. I measured out, I pre-measured 6 cups of flour, and then I just add the flour a little at a time, and then this is ready to be kneaded now. Oh, if I can get this off, there it is. This is the way it looks. It's a soft dough. It's pretty good. It saved a lot of work with that. And then with this, we're going to go over to the board, and then we're going to start kneading it.
All right, let's do it. I'm just going to move up a little bit.
You put it on pause or something?
Oh, I could. Okay, we're back talking about the filling again.
All right, I just added the parsley and 2 tablespoons of Romano or Parmesan cheese. Now I've got this all mixed up, and so then we're going to go and start rolling the dough and start making the raviolis.
Okay. Action.
Action. Okay, the dough is rusted, and now I'm going to start rolling it out. For pasta, you always try to make a perfect round. I could do pretty good, not as good as my mother. But for this, if you could almost do it rectangular, it would be to your advantage. I use a long dowel rod. It's easier when you're stretching the dough.
So right now you're really just working with a fourth of the original
Right.
hunk of dough you made.
Right. And like I said, it's because the board is just so big. But it's hard to work with a bigger piece of dough anyway. I'm going to try to stretch this out unless I didn't get enough flour in. Well, those eggs were smaller than normal. This doesn't looks like I could have cut it in thirds instead of fourths. And you want the dough to be pretty thin. You could leave it a little thicker when you're making spaghetti, but I don't know how thick do you leave yours with?
No, I try and get it pretty thin. Because, you know, they always swell up when you cook them. So.
Right. And then I do have my other rolling pin here, and then that is just to make sure it's even. Because when you're doing this, sometimes the middle gets thinner than the outsides, the edges. Should do this like when I watched it at one studio when they were working with dough, where they did a lot of unconventional things. Oh, almost there. This. Like anything else, I've never had that happen before.
Well, just one ravioli will just have a little blowout.
I'll just work around that. Okay.
What would you say the thicknesses you're trying to go for? Like maybe an eighth of an inch?
Oh God, thinner than that.
Thinner than that?
Yeah, it's almost gets
a 16th?
Yeah, transparent almost.
Mm-hmm.
And then the thinner it is, when you're stretching it over the cheese, it's easier to do. Now, these eggs obviously were not as large as I've had before because
What size egg do you usually try
I
to
usually
do?
get large eggs,
Okay.
and they're usually pretty good. But lately, I think the large eggs are almost like the mediums. I said that one time when we were having breakfast, and I said to Mary Kay, well, I bought large, but these are little. And Bob had to think a minute, and I said, he says, oh, you mean the size? I said, yeah. I talk in riddles, I guess. All right, maybe we can try to get this done so we can show how to do the ravioli. And you can almost see when I'm doing this, that when it stretches out, then you wait a second and it kind of starts going back like a rubber band.
Yeah, you can just see it kind of stretching back in.
Yeah.
Or shrinking back in, I
What would you
guess.
call a rubber band when it recoils? Okay, that's pretty good. Let me see for sure. Yeah, that should be good. To transfer, you need your pin, rolling pin.
Okay. And slide back to the other board.
We're going to this board only because of my back. And while I'm doing this, previously, I'm going to freeze these. So what I did is I put the cookie sheets in the freezer. 2 reasons: make sure they're going to fit, and then secondly, they're going to of course be cold. Now I need to get my brush. Put that in brush.
I can always.
Okay, here you go.
So what are you putting together now? Like a mixture of a little egg?
Yeah. Whoops, where's my eggs? Oh, that's going to be a close-up. I'm just going to use the yolk. Oops. Does it work? I do have an egg separator. You could add that to the next batch of ravioli. And
so that's just one egg yolk.
just an egg yolk.
Okay.
Sometimes you can put a little water, milk. It looks a little heavy. Just putting I'd say half a teaspoon. Less. All right.
You just slide over so I can see what you're doing. Okay.
Okay, now I'm going to just take some cheese and make a line of cheese. It's about a teaspoon. And I try to gauge so far from the end so when I flip it over. Some people say you should put the raviolis, some cooks, all over the dough and then take the other half of the dough. I can't do that. Never works out right for me. Then with this egg mixture, I'm just putting it between so it helps seal it. I think that's too heavy. Use a little more milk in there.
So the egg is just like the glue.
Like the glue to keep it.
And that too, is that a ravioli cutter? Is it a special tool?
I don't know if it's a special for ravioli, but it is a cutter. It's supposed to cut seal, but I don't think it does that good. So I just use it to cut because it's easier than using a knife.
Mm-hmm.
And then I still take the fork. See, this one didn't. I have 2 of these. I probably grabbed the wrong one. All right. Make sure it's sealed. And then I'm going to get a fork. And what I do is I just put air holes in the top of the cheese. And then I'm going to crimp the edges with the fork. And if it starts sticking, you just need a little flour. This is the way I do it. I think it's faster, but everybody has their own method.
And raviolis was always the traditional Christmas dinner that you always had with Grandma.
Correct, yeah. Well, it was Christmas, but raviolis was a Sunday dinner too. Could be any Sunday. that Mom felt like making raviolis. But moat for sure we always had them for Christmas. Okay, and then you just keep repeating the process till dough's all used up, and if it's not enough, go back to the mixing bowl and do another batch of dough.
So you have 200 of them.
So you have at least 200 of them, because that's what it'll take. Okay.
All right.
And now I'll just get a sheet out of the freezer. And then I'm going to just line them up on here. Then I'll freeze them, and after they're frozen, then I'll put them into bags or containers and save them till Christmas. And that's
Okay.
raviolis.
We're going to zoom out. All right, that sounds good. We'll see you on Christmas Day when we're going to cook them.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay, this is the cookie sheets. After we make them, we're going to put them on here. I put this in here so it'll start chilling. These are the ones that have been made, and I layer them in here to freeze. Once they're frozen, and then I'll take them and put them in containers and save them then for Christmas.